Celebrity Twin Flame Diaries, Part 7, The Unbiased Witness. It is June 16, 2026. I just woke up from a dream. The clock says 11:57 p.m. Here is what the dream was. I fell asleep listening to my celebrity twin flame's voice on my headphones because it helps keep the nightmares away. I fell asleep, and sure enough, for some strange reason, I was back at that foster home from hell. I did not see any of them in the dream. I was in the living room. In this dream, I was recalling a dream I had just woken up from. That is right, inside the dream, I was sitting there recalling a dream I had just woken up from. And the dream I was recalling was a dream about my celebrity twin flame. In that recalled dream, I was sitting in his lap holding a clock, one of those big round clocks, and I was trying to figure out why I would have a dream about him while holding a clock. Anyway, back to me being in the living room. I looked at the clock, and then I looked at the glass sliding door and noticed that the curtain was not fully closed. Since it was night time, I walked over and fully closed the curtain so I had privacy. Then I wandered in circles trying to figure out why I would have a dream about my celebrity twin flame, sitting in his lap holding a clock. I kept trying to figure it out. And then, all of a sudden, a light bulb went off on the top of my head, like an epiphany, and I realized that I might be onto something because I kept saying to myself, the clock, time, the clock, time. It was something about time and my celebrity twin flame, but I could not figure out what it was. Then I woke up. By the way, during the entire dream, my celebrity twin flame was speaking. I could hear his voice through the headset. He was doing an interview, so during the entire dream I could hear him speaking, but I was not aware of where the voice was coming from. It was as if it was not even bothering me for some strange reason. I woke up from the dream, and I do not know what it meant. July 20, 2026, Short-Term Memory Dream. I had a dream about my celebrity twin flame. It was in my short-term memory, though, so when I woke up, half of it faded away. But I did see him. He was sitting down across from me. That is all I can recall, and he looked like he did in 1989. He got up to walk and do something. When I woke up from the dream, it was such a minor dream that I decided not to write it down. I figured that when I woke up later, I would remember it. Unfortunately, because it was in my short-term memory, by the time I woke up fully, it had faded away. That is the only thing I can remember. This does happen a lot. Sometimes I will dream about him, and when I wake up, I say to myself, oh, I will just write it down in the morning because I am so tired. Unfortunately, it fades away. So I will not make that mistake again. Next time, I will be sure to write the dreams down. He is starting to show his face now. Ever since I set a boundary with him, he was very careful. He started turning his back toward me, coming in different forms. I guess I really hurt him by setting that boundary, and it scared him. He probably did not want me to ever shut him out again. So he has been very gentle. Now he is starting to show his face again. It is July 21, 2026. I just had a dream about my celebrity twin flame. The clock says 3:33 a.m. Normally, when I have recurring nightmares about the foster family from hell, they take place in one of two locations: the house where I grew up, or their relatives' house in another state located by the railroad tracks. That second house was its own house of horrors. I was harmed there, and the foster family would leave me for the entire summer, year after year. I had no one to protect me. Strangely enough, this was the first time my celebrity twin flame ever appeared in that railroad tracks house. That is why this dream stands out so strongly to me. In a place where I had only ever experienced terror and helplessness, he showed up, respectful, gentle, and present, turning a former nightmare location into something safe for the first time. But this time, my celebrity twin flame was in that relative's home. It was shocking that he was there because any other time I was in that house in a dream, it was a nightmare. But there he was, my celebrity twin flame. None of the people in that house were there. It was nighttime, and my celebrity twin flame was on a date with me. We were boyfriend and girlfriend, and he was very respectful. It was a very old-fashioned date, like how, back in the old times, when a man and a woman courted, the man would sit on one end of the couch all the way to the left, and the woman would sit all the way to the right. There would be a huge space between them. Even though we were boyfriend and girlfriend, he was really respecting my boundaries. We had a great time. We had dinner. We talked. It was late at night. The inside of the house was gently lit by a soft lamp. At night time, I used to be terrified of that house as a kid. It was almost like the house was haunted because it made the weirdest noises I guess only I could hear. But my celebrity twin flame was there, in that house, on a date with me, and we were the only people there. He was getting ready to leave, and right before he left, I asked him if he could pick up a paycheck for me. I gave him the address. It was the address on one of my paycheck stubs. He pointed to the address and told me that I could write them or call them and tell them to send me the check. He said, I can contact the place and have them take care of this. It was almost as if he was saying that this was something I could handle myself, but he said he would be glad to do it. I said, okay, thanks. It was the most beautiful dream, the first time in history that I was in that house, the guardian's, relative's house, and nothing bad happened. My celebrity twin flame came to that house. Again, I woke up, and the clock said 3:33, which is not uncommon. And here is the thing, I was not even listening to his music. I was listening to my own songs, the healing mantras and healing songs I make. That is what I like to listen to, something healing. So I do not know what prompted that dream. And the night before, when I had that short-term memory dream, I was not listening to his music either, because I am not a fan of his music. I have repeated that in the last documentary. I do not listen to his music because I like it. It is just that it keeps the nightmares away. And there are times I do not listen to it, or I am not listening to his interviews, and there he is. He still comes into the dreams, and I do not know why. But I am making this documentary for educational purposes, so I am making a point to write everything down. I feel bad when I cannot recall a dream, but it is okay. It taught me a lesson. Anytime I have a dream in my short-term memory, no matter how tired I am, I will write it down from this point on. Section 4, Gemstones, Essential Oils, the Cult Period, the Welcome Back, Dream, Music Discovery, and Trauma Context. Gemstones and Essential Oils Experiment. I also want to add that I am not wearing any crystal gemstones, and I have not been using any essential oils. The essential oils seem to increase the nightmares. If I do use essential oils, I only use aromatherapy during the daytime, never while I am sleeping. I stopped wearing the crystal gemstones because I wanted to do an experiment to see what is causing me to have dreams about this celebrity twin flame. So there were no essential oils for nearly 2 or 3 weeks. There were no crystal gemstones for at least 8, 9, or 10 days, no gemstones at all. And I had not been listening to his music for several nights. Yet there he is. He still comes into the dreams. There have been times when I went an entire year without listening to his music. I got rid of all his memorabilia several years ago, I do not remember exactly. This was around the time I was involved with some cults. I was trying to distract myself to make these dreams stop, and I got involved in dangerous places far too soon. During that period, there were no gemstones, no music, no thinking about him, no essential oils, and he still would come in from time to time. The cult period and suppression of dreams. The only time I had no dreams about him was when I was involved in those religious cults. Terrible mistake to get involved in them. Whatever they were doing, whatever sort of programming those cults used, it seemed to suppress anything related to my twin flame from coming through in the dreams. It increased the nightmares, in fact. And the first time I ever left them permanently and moved into my first apartment, my new apartment, the very first dream I had was of my celebrity twin flame facing me with his arms wide open, saying, "Welcome back." He was standing in front of a building with glass doors that swing open. The dream was in black and white. My celebrity twin flame was wearing a nice business suit and a hat, like a top hat, or something similar to a Stetson hat. It was very professional. He was also wearing black rimmed glasses and a tie. The dream was entirely in black and white, and he looked like he did in 1987. Trying to understand why he appears. I really want to believe that this is just something my brain conjured up to protect me. That would make sense. I want to believe it is just my brain trying to protect itself. But the mystery is, why did it use this particular man, someone I have never met, someone whose music I am not even a fan of? I saw him one time. And here is the thing, I have seen other famous celebrities one time for the first time ever. For example, Rod Stewart. Let us go back to 2012. I did not know who my celebrity twin flame was. I had just left church, Christianity, forever. When I went home, I discovered YouTube. I had never watched TV for decades. It was not that I had never seen TV, it was that I never owned one after leaving home. My whole life was my job, religion, volunteer events, and my health, just exercising. That was it. I never had friends, except the people I saw at church. That was my world until 2012. Just before the start of 2012, when I left religion, I discovered YouTube. When I started looking things up on the internet, I said to myself, my goodness, the internet is amazing. I started learning about my health, things the foster family never taught me. I started learning how to take better care of my teeth, all because I had access to the internet. I started asking questions I never knew to ask. It was an amazing invention, like a library. When I was growing up, we had libraries, and I spent most of my time in them. TV existed, but that was not me. I loved to read about the mind, the brain, psychology, biology, animals, plants. I studied everything. The library was like a walk-in internet. So discovering the internet was like having access to a library without a library card. I was watching a familiar show I loved as a kid, and that is when I saw my celebrity twin flame for the first time. As I mentioned in the past, my mouth said, I know him. Oh my goodness, I know him. My body recognized him, but my brain said, who is he? I do not know why my mouth said that, but there was something familiar about him. And that is when the dreams started. When I listened to my celebrity twin flames interviews, because I was curious about him, he mentioned people I had never heard of. He mentioned Billy Joel. He mentioned Freddie Mercury. He mentioned Rod Stewart. He mentioned John, Ringo, George, and Paul. When he mentioned those four individuals, he spoke of them as if they were a pair. I wondered, who are these men? I googled them all at the same time and found out they were the Beatles. It was not until I started listening to my celebrity twin flames interviews that I began listening to some of the other artists he mentioned in his interviews to see what they were all about. They are very talented, especially Billy Joel. His love songs are beautiful, sweet, gentle, and he has a lot of charisma. Freddie Mercury has incredible charisma as well. His entire band is talented, especially the song, "The Show Must Go On." It is powerful and encouraging. His guitarist and the whole band are amazing. Rod Stewart has a beautiful personality, and he has the coolest hairstyle. I have never seen any of these gentlemen in my dreams, ever. There were times I listened to some of their songs for a couple of hours, simply because I had never heard anything outside of gospel music. That was my first time being introduced to secular music. It was interesting. When I grew up in church, there was nothing other than the piano player. No tambourines. No dancing. We would rock a little bit when we marched into church. If we were in the children's choir, we would sway left to right. The adults did the same thing. Hearing secular music for the first time was an entirely new experience, a different frequency and energy that felt exciting and fresh. However, I quickly discovered that my ears and energy field are quite sensitive. Sharp, aggressive guitar sounds disturb my aura, which is why I do not enjoy metal, heavy metal, acid rock, or aggressive rock and roll. As long as the guitar remains melodic and not harsh, I can tolerate it for a little while. Billy Joel's band stands out to me because of its beautiful balance. The musicians play in a way that feels harmonious, and the overall sound never irritates my aura. I truly love how balanced it is. I also have difficulty with certain drum beats, especially those found in rap music. They carry a heavy, aggressive frequency that feels angry to me and disrupts my energy. Overall, I'm not drawn to anything that sounds sharp, harsh, or overly aggressive, as these frequencies tend to irritate my aura. I was not familiar with music. I love the resonant sound of crystal singing bowls, the ones made from pure gemstones that produce such pure, healing frequencies when struck. I'm also drawn to traditional Tibetan singing bowls. Beyond that, I enjoy meditative music, sound frequency tracks attuned to the chakras, and the occasional love song. Some tracks are simply cute and fun to listen to now and then. However, my true favorites are opera and classical music, particularly the works of Bach, Chopin, Beethoven, Mozart, and other old-school composers. There's something deeply moving about knowing they created these masterpieces using only pen and paper or feather and ink, with no synthesizers or digital tools. Maybe that's why their music touches me so profoundly, it carries the purity of pen and paper. I do not sit around listening to music all day unless it is light classical ambience in the background, which I do have in my house. The strange thing is, that my celebrity twin flame began appearing in my dreams, shortly after I saw him for the first time on February 2nd, or 3rd, 2012, while watching a favorite childhood show on YouTube. Ever since that moment, he has continued to come into my dreams consistently. What makes it even more puzzling is that none of the other celebrities I discovered and listened to during that same period ever appeared in my dreams, not even once. Why him? Why is he coming in? I want to believe my brain conjured him up. That would make sense. I want to believe it is just my brain trying to protect itself. But it seems like the brain would have used something familiar, something I listen to all the time. I love The Muppet Show. I do not see any of the Muppets in my dreams. Maybe my brain can distinguish between cartoon puppets and real people. I do not know. But it is interesting. I am documenting all of this for future studies, for educators, dream experts, or spiritual interpreters who may understand this after I am gone. I have no one else to talk to about this. I am not part of a twin flame community because I do not want to be misled, swayed, or influenced by anything they say. I am documenting this strictly for my own personal experiences, my own diaries. I find it interesting that my celebrity twin flame has migrated into that other house, the foster family's relatives' house. They would leave me there for the summer. It was horrible. I was harmed. When I complained, they called me a liar. They called me a notorious liar. They called me a pathological liar. I did not even know what those words meant. Anytime I reported abuse or sexual assault by their family members, they called me a notorious liar and a pathological liar. They told me to stop lying. You may wonder why I am mentioning this in a dream diary. That is the whole point. The dreams come from unresolved trauma. Nothing was ever solved. All of the abuse I went through from age 5 to 18, the whole time I was in that foster home, is stored in my body and nervous system. That is why I am mentioning it. It comes up in the nightmares. Yes, I went to CPS to report those individuals. Yes, I went to the police. Yes, I went to neighbors. Yes, I went to anyone who would listen. No one took me seriously. CPS came to the house twice. Both times, they spoke only to the guardians from hell, the foster family, without ever looking at my body or interviewing me privately. They left without taking any action. If they had examined me or administered a rape kit, they would have found clear evidence. Instead, the foster family simply told them I was crazy, and they accepted it. They pulled the crazy card. The CPS workers were a Caucasian man and woman. After speaking only with the foster parents, they left without examining me or taking any further steps. You may wonder why I occasionally mention the ethnicity of certain individuals in my story. I do so deliberately. It gives the reader a clearer visual and raises important questions. For instance, if I had been a little blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl reporting the same abuse, would they have taken me more seriously? This was the 1970s and 1980s, that context matters. That is why I include these details. I refused to stay silent. I kept reporting the abuse. When CPS returned for the second time, the same thing happened. Caucasian workers spoke only to the foster family, the crazy card was played again, and they left. I also called the police multiple times. They, too, dismissed me as crazy because the male guardian worked hand in hand with the department. There was a great deal of bribery involved. From age 5 to 18, my developing brain was trapped in that nightmare loop. Even though I did everything right and reported the abuse repeatedly, no one removed me. So how did I survive? My mind split and dissociated as a protective mechanism. That is why I have very few clear memories of those years. I have to consciously force myself to recall events. Much of it surfaces instead through my dreams. I'm not actively thinking about the trauma or feeling constantly triggered because dissociation stepped in to shield me. Later, when I experienced bullying in the army, the dissociation intensified even more. But staying within this childhood context, I found ways to cope. I began writing songs. The song I posted about getting depressed, the one framed as a male telling his story to a therapist, was actually my own story. Turning my pains into songs made me feel much better. I've been writing songs since I was very young. The difference now is that I'm trauma-informed. I'm no longer just ranting, my songs have become healing and purposeful. My baby dolls and toys also brought me comfort. They were my safe companions in my room. As punishment for reporting the abuse, the foster family took away every single toy, every doll, all my music, and my little Casio piano, then threw them all away. When I came home from school, my room contained nothing but a bed, clothes, and a dresser. It was devastating. Those items had been my only source of comfort. That is why, to this day, I keep certain toys and my therapy baby doll. They serve multiple purposes for emotional regulation, from managing phantom pregnancy sensations to complex post-traumatic stress disorder triggers. I want to be very clear, this is not regression or going back to childhood, despite what some misleading YouTube videos claim. I am a grown woman using tools that help regulate my nervous system. Now you may wonder why I am including all these intimate details in a twin flame documentary, when most people on this path do not. I am sharing them for a very specific reason. When I am dead and gone, and researchers, psychologists, or dream experts review this material, I want them to have the full picture. I remain open to skepticism. Maybe this is something my brain created to protect me, using this celebrity as a knight in shining armor. Maybe it is a true twin flame connection. Maybe it is purely psychological. By including these childhood details, I am showing that I am not biased. I am not leaning 100% into the twin flame theory, nor am I claiming it is purely psychological. I am deliberately leaving room for interpretation. People often mistake trauma for mental illness, and that is simply not the case. I have never been diagnosed with any mental illness. Trauma is not always mental illness, yet many have used my traumatized childhood against me. I was once told I could not attend a church because they had children there and were concerned about me due to my past. This is exactly why I document everything so openly. Now you understand why it is so comforting when my celebrity twin flame appears in my dreams as a protector. You also understand why this entire series is created for educational purposes. I am the unbiased witness. I mention this because that is why I keep having recurring nightmares. People say, just get over it. Tell that to my nervous system, a child stuck in trauma during the most important developmental stage of life. Do you think I want to think about this? Absolutely not. That is why I joined that religious cult. I was trying to make it go away. That is why I listened to my twin flames music, because it distracted me from the nightmares, even though I am not a fan of his music. His music, or listening to his voice, is comforting. It helps with the nightmares. Even tonight, I was not listening to his music. I was listening to meditative music, yet he came. I want to believe this is all in my head. But how do you explain what happened when I said to him, in a meditative state, "Your energy is too strong. Please stop coming into my dreams. I need a break from you. Your energy is too powerful." The very next dream, he came in angry for the first time, upset and frustrated. Not angry at me, but frustrated. As if what I said affected him. Then, for at least 3 to 4 months, he never came back into the dreams. It was almost as if he was hurt. How do you explain that? If it is all in my head, why did that happen? But when the nightmares of the foster family came back, I said to my twin flame in a meditative state, "I need you to come back. I need your protection." I put the crystal gemstones back on. I put his pictures back up. I listened to his music again. That very first night, a huge gust of wind came through my window. I leave my windows slightly cracked, just an inch, to let fresh air in at night. The gust of wind was so powerful that I had to stand in front of the window and hold down the curtains because they would have blown completely upward. It was midnight, and there he was, in the dream. He had his back slightly turned toward me. He was putting food in the refrigerator. He was wearing a white shirt. When I say he had his back to me, it was almost as if he was trying to come in gently, making sure he was not overpowering me. As you noticed in the other dreams, he started coming in different forms, respecting my boundaries. But tonight, he faced me. Yesterday, he faced me. I could see him face to face. Tonight, he was sitting on one end of the couch, and I was sitting on the other. There was space between us. We were on a beautiful, respectful date. Interesting. So if it is all in my head, why is this figure, this person I supposedly conjured up, behaving like this? I cannot understand it. Maybe it is real. Again, I am leaving room open for skepticism to keep myself grounded. But if it is all in my head, why does this figure behave like this? Anyway, that is all I want to say for now. I will keep you updated. Section 5, Closing Reflections, Unanswered Questions, and Continuity. I find all of this interesting, and I am documenting it for future educational purposes. I want future educators, dream experts, psychologists, spiritual interpreters, or anyone studying trauma-coded dreams to have access to every detail. I do not want anything left out because every detail matters. I also want to emphasize that I am not part of any twin flame community. I do not want to be influenced, misled, or swayed by their interpretations. I am documenting this strictly from my own personal experiences, my own diaries, and my own observations. I am leaving room open for skepticism because I want to stay grounded for the sake of this documentary series. I want to believe that all of this is in my head. I want to believe that my brain conjured him up to protect me. That would make sense. But there are things that do not make sense if it is all in my head. For example, why does he respond to boundaries? Why did he withdraw for months after I asked him to stop coming into my dreams? Why did he return gently when I asked him to come back? Why did he appear immediately after I put the crystals back on and listened to his music again? Why did a powerful gust of wind come through the window at the exact moment I asked him to return? Why does he behave differently depending on my emotional state? Why does he appear in trauma-coded locations and change the outcome of the dream? Why does he show up even when I am not listening to his music, not wearing crystals, not using essential oils, and not thinking about him? Why does he appear even after I removed all memorabilia for an entire year? Why does he appear even when I am listening to meditative music instead of his voice? Why does he appear in forms that respect my boundaries? Why does he appear in forms that reflect my emotional needs? Why does he appear in forms that seem to understand my trauma? These are questions I cannot answer. I am leaving room open for skepticism, but I am also documenting the mystery exactly as it happens. I want to believe it is all in my head. But if it is all in my head, why does this figure behave like a real person? Why does he behave like someone with emotions, reactions, boundaries, and awareness? Why does he behave like someone who can be hurt, someone who can withdraw, someone who can return gently, someone who can show respect, someone who can protect? I cannot understand it. Maybe it is real. Maybe it is not. I do not know. But I am documenting everything exactly as it happens, without leaving out any details, because I want future experts to have access to the full picture. I want them to understand the trauma context, the spiritual context, the psychological context, and the unexplained phenomena. I will continue to write down every dream, every detail, every reaction, every boundary, every change, every symbol, every location, and every emotional shift. I will continue to document everything for the sake of future educational purposes. In order to keep this balanced and grounded, I like to leave room open for skepticism. So I am going to share what I researched from the psychological perspective about why this may be happening. 1. Trauma-coded dream architecture. When someone experiences long-term childhood trauma, especially in unsafe environments with no protection, the brain stores those memories in a hot state. They do not integrate. They remain active. This causes recurring nightmares, recurring locations, recurring danger themes, recurring childhood settings, and recurring helplessness loops. My foster homes were developmental trauma sites, so my brain returns to them during sleep because sleep is where trauma tries to process itself. This is not supernatural. This is neurobiology. 2. Protective dream figures, a known psychological phenomenon. People who endure trauma often develop a protective dream figure, a person who appears in dreams during danger, fear, or emotional overwhelm. This figure can be a real person, a fictional character, a celebrity, a stranger, or a composite of multiple people. The brain chooses someone who feels safe, stable, predictable, emotionally neutral, and non-threatening. My brain chose a celebrity I saw only once because he was familiar enough to be recognizable, but distant enough to feel emotionally safe. He was not associated with my trauma and was not part of my real life, so he could not hurt me. This is common in trauma survivors. It is not a sign of delusion. It is a sign of the brain trying to self-regulate. 3. Boundary-responsive behavior in dreams is normal. I noticed that when I set a boundary, the dream figure changed its behavior. Psychology explains this through dream self-modulation. My dream characters are extensions of my own psyche. When I set a boundary, my brain adjusted the figure's behavior to match my emotional needs. This is not supernatural. This is internal emotional logic. Dream figures behave differently when my stress level changes, my fear level changes, my trauma activation changes, my sense of safety changes, or my nervous system shifts states. My brain is extremely responsive to internal cues. 4. The gust of wind is explainable. I described a sudden gust of wind after I asked him to return. Logically, this can be explained by nighttime temperature shifts, pressure changes, drafts through a cracked window, air currents caused by external weather, or my heightened emotional state making the moment feel symbolic. The timing felt meaningful because my emotional system was activated, not because the wind was supernatural. Humans naturally link external events to internal states. It is how meaning-making works. 5. Why he appears even when I am not thinking about him. This is one of the most important logical explanations. Trauma dreams do not require conscious triggers. My brain chooses symbols that feel safe, familiar, emotionally neutral, predictable, and comforting. My celebrity twin flame became a trauma buffer, a symbol my brain uses to regulate fear. This is why crystals do not control the dreams, essential oils do not control the dreams, music does not control the dreams, and memorabilia does not control the dreams. My brain uses him because he works. He reduces fear. He interrupts nightmares. He stabilizes my nervous system during sleep. This is not supernatural. This is adaptive coping. Logical summary. What this means in psychology. If a psychologist were reading my dream diary, they would interpret my experiences as trauma processing dreams, a protective dream figure, internal boundary modulation, symbolic emotional regulation, a safe attachment substitute created by my brain, a coping mechanism formed during trauma recovery, and a dream character shaped by my nervous system's needs. They would not interpret this as supernatural contact, metaphysical communication, twin flame telepathy, or external intervention. They would interpret it as, my brain created a safe figure to help me survive trauma and regulate fear. This is normal. This is common. This is documented. This is logical. Why this does not mean I am imagining things in a harmful way. My brain is doing something healthy, not pathological. It is creating safety where there was none. It is creating protection where there was danger. It is creating stability where there was chaos. It is creating a comforting figure where my childhood had none. This is not delusion. This is adaptive survival psychology. My brain is trying to heal. Closing statement. As you can clearly see throughout this documentary series, I choose to remain balanced. I present the dreams exactly as they occur and leave room open for interpretation. I allow the listener to decide. I share what these symbols, behaviors, and patterns could mean from a twin flame perspective, while also presenting, with equal clarity, what they could mean from a psychological perspective grounded in trauma science, dream theory, and emotional regulation. And finally, I close by saying, you be the judge. I am completely detached from this celebrity twin flame in my waking life. I am not his fan. I have no romantic interest in him. In the physical world, in 3D, I simply recognize that he is a talented artist. His skill level in music creation is impressive, and I find that aspect fascinating. But that is as far as it goes. I do not follow him. I do not desire him. I do not want to meet him. If someone offered me the opportunity, I would decline. I will also say something that almost no one in the twin flame community would ever dare to say openly. I do not even like him as a person in 3D. Yes, you heard me correctly. I do not like his character in the physical world. That is why I would never want to meet him. I am not a fan. I do not defend him. I do not excuse him. If he says something harmful or does something inappropriate, I do not dismiss it simply because he is famous. I have never been that type of person. That is why the foster family could not stand me, because I called out wrongdoing no matter who committed it. I do not care if someone is rich, respected, or adored by millions. If they harm someone, they should face consequences. I do not attack victims to protect abusers. I do not idolize celebrities. I do not worship public figures. That is the difference between me and many people who claim to have celebrity twin flames. They defend their celebrity no matter what. I, on the other hand, do not show favoritism, but instead, I treat everyone equally, maintaining complete impartiality. I do not care who someone is. If they do something unsafe, they should be held accountable. And that is exactly why this entire phenomenon is so confusing to me. Because in the dreams, in 5D, he is nothing like his 3D personality. In the dreams, he is compassionate, respectful, gentle, and kind. He behaves like the opposite version of himself. That contrast is part of what makes this unexplained. I am the unbiased witness. Ever since I was first introduced to my celebrity twin flame in 2012, when he appeared in my dreams for the very first time, I have documented everything exactly as it happened. I was genuinely shocked that he was such a kind man in the dreams. That first dream, where he appeared as his younger self around age 25 and courted me as if we were the same age, was confusing because his 5D behavior did not match who he was in 3D at the time. In the physical world, he was upsetting many people. He was behaving unprofessionally toward fellow artists, colleagues, and staff. Now, I want to make something completely clear. When someone is under the influence of substances, even the kindest person can exhibit erratic behavior. I am not referring to any period when he was struggling with substance abuse. I want to be very clear about that. I am only speaking about his behavior after he became clean and sober. Substances and recreational drugs can dramatically alter a person's personality, even the kindest individual. What disturbed me was the behavior I observed once he was clean and sober. That period marked a turning point for me, as his temper, public feuds, and emotional volatility became more openly discussed and acknowledged. That is why I was confused. In my dreams, he did not display any of these behaviors. He was a perfect gentleman. I created an entire 2-hour dream series showing the progression of the dreams. First, as a boyfriend, then courting, then engaged, then married. Throughout all of them, he was kind. The only time he ever showed frustration was when I set boundaries with him. In that first boundary dream, he simply looked disheveled and irritated, as if something was bothering him. I also spoke to psychic mediums, not just anyone. I paid for sessions with well-known celebrity psychic mediums whose credentials have been tested. In these recorded sessions, they told me this man is my twin flame and that we would meet in 2026. One said we would meet at some sort of event, and that he might not recognize me at first but would sense something familiar. I documented everything, but I did not believe it. Now it is July 2026. Whether that happens or not, we will see. To be honest, I do not know how it would even occur. I am not a celebrity. I am not trying to be. I have a very small following as an independent artist who writes for advocacy. I have never been to one of his concerts and never want to be. So how would I possibly be invited to an event where he would be present? That is why I do not believe the predictions. Maybe the psychics got their wires crossed. If 2027 arrives and none of it happens, I will document that too. I am not going to try to make it happen. Many people who claim celebrity twin flames are actual fans with emotional investment. I have none of that. I know I say this multiple times toward the end of each series, but I have to repeat it. Repetition is how people learn and how important truths become instilled. So hear me clearly. I am not in love with this celebrity twin flame. I am asexual and have no attraction to him whatsoever. I am not obsessed with him. Most importantly, he does not even know I exist. In 3D, this current physical reality, he has no awareness of me or any of the dreams I experience. I cannot say with 100% certainty, but the psychics also claim that my celebrity twin flame has been having mysterious dreams about me. They described it as him repeatedly seeing a feminine presence, a woman he does not know and has never met. They suggested he may be wondering about these recurring dreams and the other symptoms he is experiencing. I take all of this with a grain of salt. I do not read too deeply into psychic readings because they can sometimes be cold readings. I remain very grounded. I hear the information, I document it, and life goes on. In fact, I may play the actual recorded sessions in a future update so you can hear them for yourself. For now, I am simply sharing what was said. According to the psychics, they claim that my celebrity twin flame has his team, discreetly, looking into me. They suggested that some emails or website visits I assume are from fans or companies could actually be from his team trying to figure out who I am. As of July 21, 2026, I have seen no evidence of any of this. I have not received any strange phone calls, anonymous emails, or unfamiliar packages. The only calls I receive are from the Department of Veterans Affairs. My number is private, and while I do have a public email for collaborations on my YouTube channel, no one has reached out through it in any unusual way. I question everything. If his team is investigating me, how would they even know who I am, if he himself does not even know I exist? That is one of the many reasons I remain skeptical. Either way, I classify this as unexplained. I set boundaries, I stay grounded, and life goes on. The end.